Hi all, this is Deepak. Hope you all are doing well. Today in this video we are going to cover very interesting and new topic like how to create a full stack application using React.js as a front end, Spring Boot as a backend, and PostgreSQL as a database. On the front end side we are going to create a table using React.js library and populate it with data and columns. We will also implement core functionalities like searching, sorting, pagination on the front end side using functions and hooks available in React table library. We will use Axios in order to call the REST APIs written on the backend side, and we'll integrate all those into the front end side. So this is about the front end. On the backend side, we are going to create our backend application using Spring Boot, and we'll implement all the CRUD operations using REST API. Our backend application will connect with the database, and on the database side, we are going to use a PostgreSQL database. In that, like, we are going to create a database table and schema to store the employee related data on the backend side. So in this video, as we are going to create a full stack application, we are also going to implement all the CRUD functionalities. We are going to create database, table, schema on the backend side, and on the front end side, we are going to use specifically React table, and we are going to use hooks and functions available in it in order to achieve all the core functionalities like searching, sorting, and pagination. Apart from that, we are also going to cover some error related scenarios as well. In that sense, this video is going to be very useful and knowledgeable. So I will request you to please watch this from start to end so that you will not miss any functionality in between. So these are the points at high level which we are going to cover. Like here, I will show you the user interface and running functionality of our application so that you can visualize how our application will look like once we build and run into the browser. Next point we are going to see as an architecture. In this, like, I will show you the entire employee system and the subsystems involved in it. In next point, we are going to create our backend application using Spring Boot, and in this we are going to create an employee service backend application. In that we are going to implement all the CRUD operations using REST API. Finally, we are going to create our front-end application using React.js, and in that we are going to create our employee web front-end application. And in this, like, we are going to implement all the core functionalities like searching, sorting, pagination, and specifically we are going to use the React table in order to render the columns and data. So these are the high level points which we are going to cover in this video from scratch. At low level on the backend side, we are going to create our employee service application, and these are the points which we are going to cover in sequence. Like, first we will create a database table and sequence in PostgreSQL database, and here we are going to use the pgadmin tool in order to create database and tables on the backend side. Next thing, like, we are going to create our Spring Boot application, backend application, and we'll configure the PostgreSQL database properties in backend side application. In next point, we are going to implement all the CRUD functionality to store or fetch data from the PostgreSQL database. And finally, we will test all our CRUD APIs using Postman and verify response or data in Postman as well as in database tables. All these points we are going to cover on the backend side application. On the front end side, at low level, we are going to create our employee web front end application using React.js, and these are the points which we are going to cover. Like, first we will create our React.js front end application. Next we will create our table using React table library, and we will populate the columns and data in it. Next we are going to integrate the APIs from the front end side. So herein we are going to provide logic for all the APIs like get API, post API, update API, and delete API, and we are going to integrate the APIs from front end to back end using Axios library, which is available in React.js. And apart from that, we are also going to cover some error related scenarios for a particular case. So this is about the integration of all the APIs. we will implement in the front end side. Apart from that, we are also going to implement main functionalities or core functionalities like search filter sorting and pagination on the front end side using hooks and functions available in reactable library. Finally, we are going to test our client application using UI browser, and we will verify data flow end to end from browser till database to database. And from database to browser, we will cross check if all the data is getting rendered as expected from the database or not. So all this functionality we are going to cover in this video. So let us start with our first point. Like I will show you our user interface, how it will look like once we build and run our application into the browser. So this is the interface, this is the header part. This is how our application will look like once we run into the browser. This is the header part, and this is the add and edit panel. This panel we are going to use for adding the employee as well as uh, editing the employee. So let's say we can add one employee. Let's say Amar, and manager Sujit, and salary let's say 55,000. We can add. We can see it is added as a last record. Now let us add one more entry, like let's say Vishal, and manager as a Chris, and here salary we can say 650,000. Yes, we can see the record is getting added successfully. So this is about the addition. If we want to edit any record, we can simply click on edit button, and here you can see the record is getting populated in these inputs, and this button will get changed to update because we are going to update this record. Now let's say here we can add update this name to from Vishal to Tom, and here instead of Chris we can use like let's say Powell, and here the salary we can make it like 1 lakh, and we can update. Now we can see the record is updated successfully. So this is about the updation part. Now next thing, like we can see, like once we uh, here this is about the updation part. Now next thing, like here is the search filter functionality. Herein we can enter any text, and accordingly the data will get filtered out. Yes, now let's say here we can enter Sanjay, and it will show all the Sanjay matching to this record. Like here is again SAN. If we add more specific data, it will filter out more specific data. Fine. Now let's say we can search for sweat, and here other sweat related records. Fine. And if you want to specifically, let's say 588, yes, it is giving specific record as well related to the salary. This filter is applicable to all the data columns, all the data, and including all the columns. Fine. This is about the search filter. Next thing, like we can see, we are going to cover, like this is the sorting functionality. With this, like it will sort in ascending and descending order for all the columns, and it is applicable to. Fine. Now next thing, apart from this, we have covered this pagination part, in which we can see we have the first button, previous button, this is the page index, and this is the page count, and this is the next button and last button. As we are on the first page, it is the first button and previous button is getting disabled. As we click on next button, it will show the next page, and this page count, page index will get changed to the second, because we are on the second page. So this way, if we click on next page, it will keep on showing the next pages, and once we reach on the last page, we can see the next and last button will get disabled because we do not have any more page to show. Similar way, if we click on previous button, it will take us to the previous page, and on click of next button, it will take us to the next page. If we click on first button, it will take us to the first page, and similar way, if we click on last button, it will take us to the last page. So this is about the pagination part. Here you can see We have delete functionality as well. Let's say if you want to delete anything, let's say if you want to delete this record, we can simply click on OK, and this is the confirmation box, and we can see the record is deleted successfully from the table. So this is about all the functionalities which we are going to cover in this video, and this is the user interface. We are going to build the same way. Now next thing, let me show you our prerequisites, what all things we need in order to build this application. So here is our editors. So these are the editors which I am going to use to build this application. First we will see the Visual Code 1.91.1 version, Spring Tool Suite which is 4 plus 4.22.0. On front end side, these are the versions we are going to use, like React 18.3.1, Reactable 7.8.0, and Axios library 1.7.2. And for backend side, we are going to use Java 17 version as the latest, and Spring Boot as a 3.2.5, and Maven version 3.9.6. We are also going to use some other tools like PostgreSQL, and we are going to use the Pgadmin tool in order to create a database and tables in backend side. For testing purpose, for testing our backend APIs, we are going to use the Postman and verify the response data in Postman for all the APIs. So this is about all the prerequisites. You can make the combination of some minor or major versions and achieve this or build this functionality, or we can build the entire application using some minor or major combination, or if you choose the exact combination, surely it will help us to create the similar application as we are going to build. But you can try the combination as well if it is working for you. Now this is about our architecture part. Herein we are going to create our employee web on the front end side using React.js, and here we are going to use the Reactable library, and we are going to use functions and hooks available in it in order to achieve the functionalities like searching, sorting, and pagination on the front end side. We are going to call the Axios library in order to integrate the APIs which we have written on the backend side. So on the front end side, specifically, we are going to use this Reactable, and we are going to render columns and data using this library. We are going to use HTTP protocol, and here on the backend side, we are going to implement or create our employee service application using Spring Boot, and herein we are going to implement all the CRUD operations using REST API. We are going through ORM, we are going to connect with our backend side. On backend side, we are going to use PostgreSQL database. In that, we are going to create our tables, schemas, and database in order to store all the employee related data. So this is about the overall architecture which we are going to see or build in this video. Fine. So without any further ado, so let us jump into the coding now. So let me close the existing instance. First of all, we will create our database and the tables on the backend side. So let us do that. So this is our Pgadmin tool using which we can create our database and tables. So here, so this Pgadmin tool is a database management tool which will help us to create database tables in PostgreSQL database. Okay, so here we can create our new database using create database, and here we can name it like, let's say, employee underscore master. We can save it. We can see this database is created under schemas. Either we can use the public schema, or we can create a new one using this create schema. Let's say we can use create a new schema with name as an employee. Inside this new schema, under table, we can right click on and select the create table option, and here we can name our table like it's an employee, and we can add our columns which we require, like let's say it's an employee ID we need, and data type we can make it use serial. This is the primary key. We can add one more column, let's say it's a name, and here we can add the character varying as a data type, and we can add some length, let's say 250. We can make it as a not null. Next thing, like we can add next column as a manager, and here we can use the character varying its length is a 250 again, and we can make it as a not null, and we can add final column as a last column as a salary, and here salary we can use the integer data type, and this is again not null, we can save it. So what we have done, like we have created a new database. First of all, we are going to use the pgadmin. Inside that, we have created a new database with name employee underscore master. Next, we have created the new schema under schemas with name emp. Emp is for employee, and inside emp schema we have created our new table with name employee, and we have created these four different columns with four different data types like employee id, name, manager, and salary. That's it. Now let us create our backend application using Spring Boot. Let me close the existing instance. Fine. Fine. We can use this third option like create new Spring Boot Spring Starter project to create our Spring Boot application. Here we can name our application like it's an employee hyphen service. We can use build type as a Maven, packaging as a Java version as a 17, and here we can use group as an com.employee, and artifact ID is an employee hyphen service, and here we can name, we can add description like it's an employee service application. Here we can add package as a com.employee. We can cross check it once, and once everything is fine we can click on next. Here we need to add the dependency first, like Spring Web dependency we need to add. Next, like we can add JPA. Next we can add our PostgreSQL database driver. Fine. Next we can add Lomback. Fine. We are done with all the dependencies. We can click on next and finish. Now the project importing is in progress. Here we can open the form.xml file. So here we can cross check all the dependencies under dependencies tab tag. So this is all the dependency we are going to use. Spring Data JPA, using this we can create our entity and repository package classes, and we can make use of different annotations available in this JPA like repository, and there are other annotations as well. Using this starter web Spring Web dependency, we can use the various annotations available in order to create the REST APIs like REST controller, get mapping, post mapping, and patch mapping and delete mapping, and we can use many other annotations using this Spring Web. Using this driver we can connect with our database, and this is for PostgreSQL, and we can connect to the PostgreSQL database. And using Lomback we can remove the boilerplate code, and with this we can achieve the getter setters. This is about the small introduction of all the dependencies which we are going to use in this project. Fine. So now let us build our application using run as Maven install. Now the build is failing. Now this is, let me comment out this test because due to which it is failing. You can save it, rerun it again, rebuild it again. Fine, it's a build success. Now let us run our application. Fail to configure. Okay, data source. Okay, so now actually we have added the driver of PostgreSQL, and by default it is trying to point to H2 embedded database. Okay, so due to which it is failing. Now we need to add the properties for the database so that this error will not occur. Fine. Now let us add the database configuration part in our application.properties file. First of all, we can change the server.port. By default, it is using 8080. We can use 8085. Next thing, like we can add database related properties, like we can use spring.datasource.url first, and here we need to add our jdbc colon postgre sql colon. Here we can add localhost 5432. If it's a default port, if you have changed this port, you can use that change the port at here, and here we can mention our actual database, which is employee underscore master in our case. If you want to cross check, you can cross check it once. So this is the database which we have created. Okay, fine. Next thing, we can add our username and password at here. And username is postgres at here. Similar way we can add password, and password is same postgres @123. Fine. And here we can add string.jpa and dot show sql so that we can see the executed queries into the console. We can use true as a variable. We can add spring.jpa dot data source platform we can use, and here we can add our dialect part for PostgreSQL. So this is the dialect for our PostgreSQL database. Now fine. Now next thing, we can add our jpa dot hibernate.dtl atto as an update. Fine, we can save it. With this we are done with our database configuration part for PostgreSQL on the Spring Boot backend side. Fine. So we can run it, build it again, and check. We can see now it is running fine as expected and using the port 8085 which we have configured in our properties file. Fine, we are done with our database configuration part. Now let us start our actual CRUD implementation, CRUD functionality implementation part. So let us start adding the required packages. Here we can add first package, like it's an entity. Next we can add the repository. Next we can add service package, and finally we can add our controller package. Fine, we are done with all the packages. Now let us add the required component and classes into it. First we can add our employee entity object. Now let us annotate with all the required annotations. First is entity, next all our constructors, next no all constructors. Next we can annotate it using data. Next we can add builder annotation, and finally we can add table annotation here, and we can import or add required import for this. Inside table we can add name, and here we can name our exact table, which is employee in our case. And here we can add one more thing, like let's say schema. And what schema we have created, it's an emp. If we have not created any schema and it is the table is let's say this is our table which is inside our schema emp which we have created. If it is inside the public folder and inside this table, then we don't need to pass any schema as such, but we have created a new schema, that's why we are passing it here. Now let us add the properties. Private long employee id first, next private string name. Next we can add private string manager. Next we can add private integer and it's an salary. Fine. We have added all the required properties. Now let us add the required annotations for the primary key. We need to add its generated value, and inside this we need to add the strategy, and here strategy is auto. With this it will keep on generating the index as an auto for our primary key. So we are done with our this one. Now let us add the column part as well, and here let us add the import for this column first. Fine. Now we can add name, and here is a column name which is employee ID for the ID. Similar way we can add column entries for 3 more columns. Fine. So this is name, this is manager, and this is salary. We can edit it here and we can save it. With this we are done with our employee entity object. Let us add the repository part now. This is an interface. We can create interface with name employee repository. Fine, we can finish, and here we can add the required annotations. Let's say it's a repository, so we can add it, and here this interface extends CRUD repository. We can add it our entity class which is employee, and here is the data type of our primary key which is long. We can add the imports for employee and long employee. Fine. So with this we are done with our repository part. Now let us add the service interface first. Here we can add our employee service interface first, and inside this we can add all the methods which we are going to use. Let's say first we are going to retrieve all the employees, so it's a list of employee return type, and here we can name it like get all employees method. Next thing, like we can add one more method, get method, like which will return a specific employee based on what ID we are passing, and here we can add pass input as a employee ID, so that the respective employee object will get returned from the database. Next thing, like we can add our next method as an add employee, and which will take employee as an input object, and the return type is employee as well. So this input object will get added into the database, and the same will get returned as a return type. Next we can add our update employee method, and this is the updated object will get updated into the database, and the same will get returned right here. Fine. So this is about update method. Next thing we can add for delete employee, and this is about delete employee, and this object will get deleted from the database, and here its return type should be string, because the repository delete method is returning void. Fine. So this is about our interface. Now let us add our class with name, like let's say it's an employee service interface, IMPL. It's an implementer class. Now we need to annotate it using service stereotype annotation, and this class is implements our employee service. So we need to add all the provide implementation for all the unimplemented methods set here. So here we can use add in this option, so that it will provide the default implementation for all the methods available in a repository. Fine. Now we need to add actual implementation for all these methods one by one. Now first of all we will annotate our repository class into this service component so that we can call the methods available on that. Employee repository fine, and we have injected this employee repository so that we can call the methods available on it. For get all employees, we can call methods like find all, and here we can cast it to the list of employee. Fine. Next thing, like we can call method as find by id, because we are going to return the particular employee object on basis of id, and here it will return a particular employee, because find by id is returning optional, hence we are calling get, so that we will get a particular employee object on that. Fine. This is about find by employee. Next thing, like we can add call our save method, and this is the employee input employee you can pass, so that it will get saved into the database. So this is about save method, or creating the employee into the database. Next thing, like we can add our similar method so that this updated object will be updated into the database, and here we can provide implementation for our delete method. For delete method, we can call the delete method on repository. So delete method is returning void. So now let us, we need to prepare one string which will get returned from here. Like let's say here we can add return. On successful deletion, we can return this message like employee is deleted successfully for employee id, and here we can add this employee id it here, like this is the employee id. We can complete this statement. Fine. So we are done with our service implementer class. Now let us add our controller class. Inside this we can add our employee controller, create this employee controller class. We can annotate it using race controller. Next thing, we need to inject our service component it here, as we are going to call the methods on that. This is the employee service, and we need to inject it into controller. Fine. So this is done. Now we need to call the actual mappings. Like first we will implement the get mapping at here, and here we need to pass our employee endpoint, which is employees, because it is returning all the employees. Here we should return the list type, return type, which is the employee in this case, and here we can add this method like get all employees, and here we do not require any input param, and here we can call the return method on this service, and which is like get all employees. Fine. We need to add imports for list and employee. Fine. Now we are done with our get all employees method, which will return list of employees. Now we can do one more thing, like here we can add a response entity, and we can return this response entity instead of actually returning the list, because it can contain the status code and other things description as well. So better we can use this. So we can wrap our return type into this response entity, and we are done. With this, we are done with our get all employees method, which will return all the employees available in the database. Let us add one more get mapping, which will return a particular employee based on the employee id, which we are going to pass it here. Fine. Now here it is returning a particular employee, so list is not needed here. Now we are returning the employee based on id, and here we need to add the path variable as an employee ID, and same we can use as an input it here. Fine. So this is the input and we need to pass it here, and we need to call the respective method like get employee ID and pass this input it here. Fine. So this employee and get employees by ID, and here we need to complete the bracket. Fine, we can save it. So we are done with our next get API, which will return a particular employee object based on what employee ID we are passed as an input. So this is about another get mapping we are done with. Now let us add our post mapping so that we can add the employee object into the database. So here dot was by mistake, here it should be slash, and here we don't need the employee ID, and here we can say instead of get we can say create employee, and here it's a create employee, and here we don't need to pass the path variable, rather we need to pass request body, and here we can say for request body we can add it's an employee object which need to be inserted into the database, and here is the employee object we need to pass in order to save our method add employee into the database. Okay, so this is the add employee which will create a new employee into the database, and this is the new employee which need to be added into the database. That's it. We need to provide the import for this post mapping. So with this we are done with our post mapping. This method will allow us to create a new employee into the database. Let us add one more method for patch mapping, which will allow us to update the employee into the database. So we need to add uh, we need to pass employee ID as a parameter in order to update the method, and this is the update method, and here is the actual object which need to be updated against this ID, and we can add this modified object to update method, and this is our update method. We need to pass the add the import for patch mapping. With this we are done with our update method or patch mapping. With this we can update the modified object into database against this ID, and we will return the same object as a return type. This is about patch mapping, which will allow us to update any employee into the database. Now next, last API we can implement like it's a delete mapping, and for delete mapping we can use string as a data type, because service method is returning string, and here we don't need to pass the request body, only the employee ID is enough for that. Now here what we can do, first of all we can retrieve the employee object, let's say emp object, and we can use this method to get the particular employee object which is existed into the database based on this employee ID. Now we can check here if this emp, we can copy it, we can check if this emp object is not null, means it is existed in database, then in that case we can simply set attributes, and these are the not set of we are going to delete it, right? So what we can do, we are going to call the delete method from here, and here is our delete method. Fine, and here we need to pass this emp object which we have retrieved from the database. Fine, now we need to create one new string, like it's to store the delete message post successful deletion, and this delete message will store here the delete message, and finally we will return the same. Fine, so what we have done like here, so this service method is returning this string, So we will hold this string into this delete message, and finally we will return this delete message post successful deletion. uh, we will return this delete message as a return type. Fine. With this we are done with our delete mapping. This method will allow us to delete the employee for this input employee ID from the database. Okay, so we are done with all the CRUD APIs. Now let us modify this update employee method similar way like we have done it here now. So here we don't, okay, here what we are going to do here, first of all, uh, based on this input employee ID, we are extracting this object or retrieving this object from the database. Now we need to set values to this object, and we can set it like here. We need to set manager, and this is the updated object which we are going to get the values from. Fine. First, next, like this is an employee object. Next, set name, and we can set values from this input object. Get name. Fine. Next thing, like we can set salary, and same salary we are going to take from this input object, and this is the get salary. Fine. Now this is the updated object, like what here is a modified employee object. Now what we have done, based on this input employee ID, we have retrieved the object from the database, and we have set all the values present in this modified employee into this employee object, and finally we are going to pass this employee object to update it into the database. That's it. So this is about the update patch mapping with which we can update any employee into the database. Fine. With this we are done with all the CRUD operations. Now we need to add one more annotations, like it's a cross origin, and with this, like because we are going to call these APIs from the browser, so we need this cross origin so that it will not lock any request or block any request as such. Fine. With this we are done with our backend CRUD implementation part. So let us do one thing. Let us rebuild this application because we have added lot of code we have added. Now we can run it once. Fine. Now let us, with this, like we are done with our backend application part, this implement CRUD functionality, this point. Now let us test our, sorry, this is the, okay, yes, now we need to test our APIs using Postman. We have implemented all the APIs. Now let us test with Postman. Now let me open the Postman. We need to check what port we are using. This is the 8085, and first of all we need to check what data we have inside this database. Now we can check using this script and select query. Now we can run this query, and we can see like there is no data, it is showing only columns. Okay, fine. Now we can use the get method, and let's say here for get method we can use 8085 port which we are using, and here inside body we can use raw, text and JSON. Now we can check for our get mapping, get all employees. Now it is returning the empty array which is expected, because we can see inside table we do not have any data. So let us use the post mapping to add the data. This is the post method, and this is the same URL we can use for post mapping. Based on this method, the respective uh, controller method or API will get called, even though the URL is the same. Fine. Now here we need to add one record let's say we can add one record it here. It's an Santosh and Kumar. Let us add one more record, like let's say it's a John, and we can say it's a Peter, and here we can make it 55,000. We can see the record is adding successfully. We can cross check into the database. We have added two records, is same reflecting into the database side. Similar way we can check for our update method. For update method we need to use patch HTTP method, and here for updation, okay, so we can call the get mapping, and here now we can see we have two object into the as a response. Now we can copy this object, and for update method we require two input parameters, like we can say it our update method. Okay, this is our update method, and we require the request body, employee object, and the employee ID. So we can pass the employee ID it here, like this is the second, and this is the employee object as an input. Now we need to modify this employee object. Let's say instead of John we can add Tom, and instead of Peter we can add Robert. Fine. And this is instead of 55 we can use as in 1 lakh, and we can send this request, and we can see the object is modified successfully. We can cross check by calling the get method. Fine. And we can cross check in database as well. Now the second object is Tom and Robert. Fine. Likewise, now next thing, like we can test our delete method, and here is our patch mapping. Same URL we can copy and add it here, and we can choose this, and this is the JSON, and we can hit. Now you can see the record is deleted successfully from the database. We can cross check by calling the get mapping API, and here we can see it is showing only one record because we have deleted the second record. Now if we execute this query, we can see there is only one record. Fine. Now it is showing the array and list of employee object. We have one more get API. Let's say here if we add, let us add one more entry so that it will look fine. Now let's say here we have two entries. Now let's say if you want to retrieve a particular object employee, let's say here is the ID 3. If we pass the 3 ID, then it will return a particular object, not than whole list of. Fine. Yes, we can see this get mapping, second get mapping, which is this one, where we are passing the employee ID and it is returning the particular employee object. So with this, like we have tested all the CRUD APIs or CRUD functionalities we have implemented on the backend side, and we have tested it using Postman. Fine. Now let us focus on the front end side, and we will start implementing our front end part. First of all, we will create our React.js application. Okay, so let me, so here is our project. Fine. Now let me open the VS Code instance first. Now inside this, what we can do, we can use the command like npm create wheat at the rate latest, and here we can add our actual project name. This is employee -web, which we are going to create. Yes, we can use this React option next as in JavaScript, and we can see this employee -web folder is created with all the default folder and files. Now let us go to this project folder and install the dependencies using command npm install. So fine, now let us run. The installation is done. Now let us run our application using command npm run dev. So we can see our application is running fine. Yes, fine. Now let us do one thing now. So we have created our empty application using React.js. Now we can start implementing our actual APIs so that our integration. First of all, we can add our tables and all. So to do that, first we will clear everything from our existing files. Fine. So let me clear from this app.jsx and it here unused imports. Fine, we can save it. Now you can see it is reflecting on this side as well. Fine. We can clear from app.css as well. Now we can go to index.html and from here we can remove this icons. Next we can add some title as a, it's an full stack application using React.js. We can add comma and here we are going to use Spring Boot and it's for database we are going to use PostgreSQL. Fine, we can save it. Now inside this app.jsx we can add the container. We can add the design our layout first. We can add main container. Let's say it's a main container. Next thing inside this main container we need one header and for header we can copy the same as it here and we can save it. Fine, seems good. Now after this we can add one div for our, we can give class name is an add panel and here this is add panel. Here inside add panel we are going to provide inputs and folder. Fine. Next thing, like after add panel we are going to add input search and here we can say input search. Same thing we can add it here and here we can add placeholder as an search employee here. Fine, we can save it. Now we can add after this. Fine. Now we can add some CSS part for this one. First of all, this is main container. We can add for main container. Here we can add width as an 567 pixel, height, fit content, margin left let's say 75 pixel. Fine. Now next thing we can add for our h3, and here for h3 we can add some background color. Not the background color, actually font color we need to add. Fine. Next thing, like, we need to add for our add panel. In here we are going to add width up to, let's say, some 60 pixel. Let us check. And here we can add border 1 pixel solid. We can save it. Seems good. Next we can add, this is our input. Here we can add some class name, and then search input, and for this same we can add some CSS. We can add some margin top, let's say 15 pixel. Fine, seems good. We can add border radius as well for this one. We can add border and border radius. Fine. Can make height we can make 25 pixel. Seems good. And we can increase some. Okay, fine. A width we can add, let's say 200 to 10 pixel. Seems good. We can add some background color as well. Fine. Now we can, inside this add panel, we can add our input and labels. Okay. And inside this we can create one more div for each columns. For each input we can add one div, and this is the div. We can like add panel, we can say add panel div. Inside this we can add one label first, or we can say it's for name. Here we can say it's for name. Next thing, we can add one input text, and this is for name. ID is again name, and here we can give class name as an add panel input. Fine, we can save it. Now we can add, here we need to add one line break. You can save it. Seems good. Now we can add some CSS for this one. Let's say we can add okay, we can add some CSS for input null div. Fine. Now we can add some width. Here we can add the background color. Let's say we can add it here. Fine. Now for this panel we can add some background color, and we can add the background color of this one. You can save it. So sorry, it's a div. Here we can cut this and add to the actual our add panel here. Fine, seems good. Now this is about the name. Similar way we need to add for manager and for salary. So let's say this is for manager. Same we can add it here and can copy it here and it here. And for salary again we need to add, and this is the salary part. We can copy it. Fine, we can save it. Now we need to add for div, and here we can set display inline block. Seems good. Now next thing we can add, like after this we need to add button, one button for add. Here we can name it like add btn. Similar way we need to add one more button for cancel, and this is the cancel btn. You can save it. Now we can add the css for this one. We can add for add button first. We can add font size as an we can use the 11 pixel, and here we can add line height as an 15 pixel. Seems good. We can add some margin left. Let's say 5 pixel is fine. Seems good. And we can add some background color. Let's say green. We can add and make use of this one. Seems good. Now similar way we can add for cancel button. Fine. And for cancel button, now we can increase the width. Width we can make it like, let's say 60 pixel for cancel button, and same width we can use for it here. Seems good. What we can do here, we can increase this up to some extent. Let's say it's a 575, and same we can use it here. And check. We can use somewhere 80 and check. So this button should get placed right here. Finally we can make it 585. Let us check what happens. Fine, seems good. Now this is the add and cancel button. Now let us do one thing here. After this is the add panel, which we add an edit panel, which we are going to use for add and edit purpose, and this is the search filter. Now let us add our table part. After this, we can add table, and we can give class name as a table. So inside table, we have two main tags. Like first is a t head to render all the header parts, and this is a t body to render all the body parts, okay, data parts. Fine. Inside t head, we need tr to render rows, and inside tr we need th to render headers. Same way, inside t body we need rows, and inside these rows we need td to render data part. Fine. So this is about the general structure of the table we used to follow, and there is nothing new. Fine. Now we actually need to use our React table library in this. Fine. So I think in order to use the React table library, we need to first cross check whether we have added that dependency. We have not added that dependency. Let us add that dependency first. We can add that library using command npm install or I, and here is our React table library. And the next thing, like, we need to add Axios as well, because we are going to call our APIs from the backend. So these two dependency we require. Fine. So we can cross check, like, inside dependencies. Now it is reflecting. Now let us do one thing here. We can use our functions. First we need to import, and here we are going to use hooks like use table and from. This is the React table. Fine. So this hook we are going to use initially first, and we can keep adding the other hooks and on need basis. Next thing, like, we can import star as React, and from here we can add React. Fine. You can save it. Now here, in order to actually create a React table, we require few constants. Like first we need uh, employee data, so we can say employees, and here we can say set employees, and here we can use state, and here we can initialize it with array. Fine. Next constant we require, like, we need columns to render inside table, and here we can use react dot use memo, and inside this we can use this. Here we need to add the headers, and we can initialize it with dependency array. Now inside this we need to add header, and this is the format for adding headers. First we need to use header, and this is the employee ID. Next we need to add accessor, and for accessor we need to pass the accessor. Fine. So this is about the first column, which is employee ID, and this header is employee ID, and this will be shown on the UI browser, and this is the accessor through which we can access this header. This is the basic difference. Now let us add 3 more columns. This is about first column. Now let us add 3 more columns. And this is for name, and here we can give the accessor as a name, and this is for manager, and we can give accessor as a manager, and this is for salary, and same is the accessor. Fine. So we have added the columns as a constant. Now we need the data constant as well, and here we can use the same react dot use memo, and inside this we can add our employees, and next we need to initialize it with some dependency array. Fine. So now we have everything like employees, these columns and this data. This data will store the employees data. Now we need to create one more constant for table, and we can use this use table hook. Inside this we need to render columns first and next data, and for data we are going to use employees. Fine, seems good. Now we are this table, instead of using this table because it's an override, it has a lot many features and attributes or variables inside this. So rather we can use the functions, specific functions which we require from the table. Now we need get table props, we need get table body props, we need here like header groups, we need rows, and we can add prepare row. So this is the initial functions we can add, and we can keep on adding as we require further. Okay, so this is about the use table hook, and these are the functions which we are going to use in our case for creating this React table. Fine, now let us use these functions in our actual table. So let us now we can watch it carefully how we can use it here. Like we can ask get table props it here. Now for here for headers, like we can use header groups and map on this, and here for each header group we are going to add the row part at here, and for each row we need to call the function like ht.get table, sorry, for header groups map for each header, sorry, it's a key, it should not be key. We are going to call the function, and we can use ht.get header groups, and we need to pass some key as an hg.id. Fine, now here for each header group we are going to call headers on that, and we are going to map on that, and for each column we are going to render these headers. We can cut this header part and add it here, and here we are again going to call the functions for header specific functions like column.get header props. Fine, and here we need to add one key as an, let's say, column.id. Fine, and here we need to actually render our header part, and to render our header we can call this render method, and inside this we can pass this what we are going to render. This is a header, and the headers which we have mentioned it here, that all those headers will get rendered on the UI. Now it is not showing any header as of now. Now let us check by saving it. We can save it and we need to run it. We can see this is showing these headers. Fine, now let us okay, fine, now let us add the body part as well. This is showing the headers. Now let us add body part. So before we add the body part, let us add some CSS, because yes, for table related CSS we have this table it here. We have not added any table. Now we add table. Inside this we can use the same width as it here. Fine, and next we can add border 1 pixel solid. Seems good. Now we can add border collapse, then collapse. We can save it. Next thing, Here we can use the same margin as in left margin which is there, so that it will look good. Fine. Now it is showing the header parts. Now let us add some headers. Okay, fine. Now let us add our actual data part, so that uh, it will show the columns as well as the headers. Now for data part we are again going to use some functions like get a table body props. This is the function. Now next thing, like we are going to call rows, and we are going to map on rows, and for each row and for each row we are going to return, and we need to return this row. We can cut it and edit it here. Fine. And for each row we need to again call the function like row dot get. Okay, 1 2 3 row dot get. We can add get table props. Sorry, not table props, it should show the row props. This is the t body, and inside this we have this row, rows dot row, and here in the this was missing. Fine. Now we can call this arrow was missing. Okay, fine. Now here for each row we can call like row dot get row properties. We can call the row properties on this one, and here we can pass a key like, let's say it's a row dot id. Fine. Next thing, like for each row now we are going to call cells, and on each cells we are going to map, and for each cell, let's say, we are going to render the data. We can cut it and edit it here, and we need to pass the properties for cell. Now let's say it's a cell dot get cell properties, and here we need to pass a respective key for cell like cell dot id, and here we need to actually render our cell. So what we can call it here, like we need to call cell dot render, and here we need to pass actual cell. We can save it. Fine. Now we have rendered the data. Now here, before we prepare return the row, we need to prepare row, and for that we need to call this function and pass this row. Fine. Seems good. Now we can save it. Now it is not showing any data. Now let us check in database. Yes, we have at least 2 records, and it is not showing because we have not called any get API, so that it will return the data from the backend side. Okay, so let us add one get API. Here we can use constant get all, let's say get all employees, and here we can use it. Now here we are going to use Axios. Now we need to import it first. Fine. Now here we can use that Axios dot get, and here we can add we can use that URL like HTTP. It's a local host, and here we can add it like 8085 in our case. This is the port, and endpoint is employees. Fine. And here, if we want to cross check, we can check it like we can go to properties. This is the port number which we are going to use, and this is the endpoint which we are going to use. Fine. Now here we need to collect the response, and you can say response, and we can log it first like res.data, and we need to set employees as an response.data here, so we can save it. Fine. Now still it is not showing any data because even though we have added a function, we have not given a call to this function. Now let us add use effect, and inside this we can give call to this function, and this is our so we are going to give call to this function, and this is the function, and here we need to initialize it with array. Fine, we are done. We can save it. Now we can see by this time it is not showing any record. Now let us save it. Yes, it is showing the record as expected. Fine. Now let us add some CSS to this data table. First we need to add some margin. Let's say margin top. Let us add some 15 pixel. Seems good. Or 10 pixel, whatever. 12 pixel. 12 pixel is seems good. Fine. Now let us add the header part, and here we can add border and border radius to this. Font size 15 pixel, line height we can make it 20 pixel. We can save it. Now it seems good. Now we can inside table we can add text align as a center. You can save it. Seems good. Now for T header we have border and border pixel. Now let us add some background color, and we can use this blue. Now let us change it to something which this seems good. Now we can remove this border radius part. Now it is looking good. Now next thing, like we can add some TRA1. We can add the data part as well. Let's say here this is for header. Now we can add for data, and for data we can remove this background color, and we can use seems good. Fine. Now let us add one more entry, or let us add some E1 rows color. We can say in child, and here is the E1 row color we need to add, and here we can set background color as an, let's say here we can save it. Now we can add some light colors. Seems good. Now we can see it is showing the data as expected and with some color combinations. Fine. So we are done with our table population, and this is the GET API which we are using to fetch the data, retrieve data from the database. Now we have only 2 records, and it is showing only 2 records. Now let us do one thing here. Now let us add our add API. Now whenever we enter something at here, So that should get added into the database. Now first we need to create one object which will hold the data whatever we enter it here. So we can create that. So now we are going to implement the post API. First of all, we can create one constant to hold the data, employee data, which we are going to enter into these text boxes. Now we can call set employee data, and here we can use stat. As inside this we need to add name as a blank, next manager as a blank, next salary as a blank. Fine, seems good. Can complete it, we can save it. So this object will hold whatever data we are entering it here. Okay, fine. Now we need to do, like, we need to set values for all these inputs. First we can say value, and here we can pass this employee data dot name. So this is for name. Similar way we need to add for manager, and similar way we need to add for salary part, and here is salary. Fine, we can save it. Okay, now this employee data will hold whatever we enter into the text. Next thing, like whenever we change this text, this should change this value. Okay, so we can add on change event, on change, and we can say it's a handle change function we can call, and inside this handle change we can write some function for handle change, and here is our function. Let's say whenever we change the values at here, we need to set our employee data, and here to set the employee data we need to change this employee data, and here we need to pass e dot target dot name, and we can say e dot target dot value. Here we need to pass e, and we can complete it here. Fine, we can save it. Seems good. Now on handle change, whenever we change text, like let's say here, whenever we change something, this is the handle change, and fine. So same way here we can use for this name as well as for salary. We can save it. Now whenever we enter and change it accordingly, the data will get set it here in this data will get set to employee data. Fine. So we are done with our this employee data setting. Now let us add our actual post mapping function. So whenever we click on add button, it should insert or create a new employee object into the database. Now here is our add button. Here we can use on click event, and we can say it's a handle submit we need to call. Now here we can use the handle submit, and here we can use constant and handle submit, and here we are going to use, let's say, e dot first prevent default we need to call. Next thing, we are going to use Axios. Here we are going to insert the entry into database. We need to use async, and we can call await and use Axios dot post method, and here we can copy this and add as is, and here only we need to change this. Instead of get we need to use post, and here we need to add await. Fine, and here we need to pass the actual employee data which need to be inserted into the database, and we don't need to pass this set employees. We can save it. With this, like, it should add our data into the database. Now let us check with this functionality how it happens, how it works. Fine. So let us do here, we can add one more thing, like here we can enter the entries now. Let's say we want to add Tom, and manager is a Peter, and here salary is 60,000 somewhere. Now let us add it. We can see it is getting added and it is getting shown only after we refresh this button. Now we need to add some functionality, let's say here, which it's a clear all, in which we can give call to our get all employees, so that we don't need to refresh the data. And here we can call our get all employees at here, so we don't need to refresh the data post addition. Fine. Now let us add one more entry and cross check it. Let us add, let's say here it's an Sachin and it's an Manoj as manager, and we can add 66,000 as a salary. Now we can see Sachin is getting added as expected without refreshing, without even refreshing the page. Fine, seems good. Now let us see, once we add, so this data is still there, so we need to clear this data, and again whenever we click on this cancel button should be disabled at first. Now first, in clear all function, we can do like we can set employee data, and here we can use this, say for set employee data, and here we are going to clear everything. With this it is done, and initially this button should be disabled. Okay, so we can use one constant as, let's say we can use one constant as hide cancel set show cancel, and we can say set show cancel, and here we can use state as an use state. Initially show cancel is a false. Fine. Now here we can use this show cancel, and exactly where our cancel button is, this is the cancel button, we can call disabled, and when we need to disable it, like whenever it is not show cancel, whenever show cancel is a false, don't show it. Fine. Fine, it is getting disabled. Now whenever we add one new record, like let's say it's a Tushar, and here is let's say here is Amar, and salary is 75,000 somewhere, we can add it. Now you can see the record is getting added without the page is getting refreshed, and this text will get cleared, and even this button will be disabled as expected. Now we are done with our addition part, and the data is getting added into the table. Let us check into the table. So here if we click on select query, we can see all the data which we have added is getting reflected into the database. So last record is for Tushar and Amit, and same is getting reflected into the table as well as on the UI side. Now let us, in order to achieve the edit or update functionality, we first need to add the action buttons. So let us add the action buttons in our table first. Here we need to add two more action buttons here, and this is the header for, let's say, edit, and accessor is edit, we need to add one more thing as id, and for id we can use the same edit it here, and after this edit button we need to add cell, and here is our props we can call cell, and here let us wait, it is okay cell, and here we can say props, and props we can call, we need to here add one button, and its button is an edit, and here we can add some class name, we can edit btn, we can save it. Now let us check into the table. Yes, we can see the header is getting added, but the table is not getting added. Okay, so here let us check. So it should be capital cell. Fine, seems good. Now it is showing the button as well. Similar way we can add one more button, action button for delete. So for delete it should be delete, and we can copy it, add it at respective places like it here and it here. We can mention accessor as an small delete, and here we can change the button name as an delete. Fine, we can save it. Now you can see both the buttons it is showing. Let us add some css for this one. Now here similar way we can add for delete button. Seems good. We can add some width. Same width we can add it here. Now it seems good. Border radius we can add 5 pixel. Now it seems good. Now let us add some background color. Let's say background color, and we can use the same background color which we have added for this button. And same it for cancel button, we can save it, edit and delete button. So for delete button we need to use a red color because it's a deletion, and we can use some color, let's say it seems good. Fine. So this is about edit and delete action button we have added successfully into our table. Now let us check our functionality, right? So this header, 18 pixel seems good. Fine. Now let us add some and same here we can use 18 for TD as well. Seems good. Okay. So let us add one. Let us add. This is about the action buttons we have added. Now next thing, like what we can do, we need to add on click of this edit button, it should populate this name and manager and salary with the respective edit row values. So let us add that part on edit. So here we can use on click functionality, and here we can use, let's say, handle update, and here we need to pass like props dot cell. We can call on cell on props, and on from cell we can access the row, and from row we can access original. We can save it. Now same thing we are going to fine. So here we need to add the function for this one. Now let us add one function. Now here you can mention some constant and handle update, and here we have this employee object, and here we can say what we can do. This is the employee object which we are passing from here. Now let us do one thing. Here we can call, we need to first set employee data with this employee object. Fine. So that these values, what row we select, the same values will get shown it here. Now let us check with this one. We need to save it. Now we can click it. Yes, we can see the values is getting populated in these text boxes. Fine, seems good. Now on click of this, now whenever we want to edit, on click of edit, this label should get changed to update. Now let us do that. So we need to check for add button. Yes, it is at here. Now we can add it here. Now here we can say employee data dot employee id. If employee id is there, then go for update, or else uh, show the add button, and we can remove this extra add. Fine. Now let us check what happens at here. Now we can see it is showing the update button as expected. Okay, now the cancel button should get enabled whenever we click on edit. Okay, so that part also we need to add it here. Now whenever we change handle update it here, we need to set show cancel as a true, so that it will be shown. Fine. Now let us check. So whenever we click on edit, it is cancel button is getting enabled. Yes, seems good. Whenever we click on cancel, it should get disabled, and here it should show the update button as well. Okay, so that thing we can do. On click of cancel we need to call. So where is our cancel button? We need to handle that. On click functionality, let's say handle cancel, and here we need to add this cancel button functionality here, like let's say constant handle cancel, and here we can add we need to add we need to set this on cancel. It should clear the entry first. Fine, and it should disable the button like set show cancel as false. Now we can check it on the browser side what happens. Like fine, now first it is disabled and this is the empty, which is as expected. Now let us click on edit. Now the cancel button is getting enabled, and once we click on cancel, this text will get clear, should get cleared, and this button should get disabled. Fine, it seems good, it is working fine. Now let us actually update our record. Now in order to update the record, we need to add logic at here. Like let's say here we can check if our employee data dot employee id is there. In that case, go for updation. We can copy it, paste it, and if id is not there, in that case go for addition. This is the addition. For post, for addition we are using post, and for updation we need to use patch method. Okay, so basically if the employee ID is there, that means we should go for updation because the record is already there, and if the employee ID is not there, in that case we should go for post method. Fine, now here for patch method we need to pass the ID as well, so let us do that it here. Now here we need to add the ID, and for passing ID we can use like it's an employee data dot employee ID. Seems good. And here is our employee, here is employee ID, and here is employee data, and this will get updated. Fine, seems good, we can save it. Now yes, now let us check with for this update functionality at here. We can refresh it. Now let us update our last record. Let's say instead of Tushar we can set like Suhas, and here instead of Amar we can change it to Amol, and instead of it we can change it to 77,000, and we can update. Fine, we can see it is getting updated as expected. Now let us check into the database for this one. Last record, instead of Tushar it should show Suhas and Amol. Fine, it is getting updated into the database as well. Fine, so this is about the edit functionality. Similar way we can check for delete functionality, but before we go for delete functionality, let us handle some error related scenario. In order to show the error, we need to again define one constant, like let's say it's a error message, and here we can say set error message, error message, and here we can say set error message. Fine, and here we can use state as an initially it is a blank. Error message, fine, use state initially it is blank. You can give in any name it here, and the set message for the same. Initially it's a blank. Now let us check it here. Now when we want to set the error message, like let's say now here we need to add employee data dot, here we can say if there is no name, employee data, let's say if there is no name. Similar way, or if there is no manager, or we need to check if there is no salary part. All these are mandatory fields, so either any one of this is not there, then we need to display some error rate here. Now let us do one thing. Here we can define some error message and here we can set it first blank, and here we are going to set the error message as all fields are required. Okay, now this error message we need to set to our actual error constant which we have set, which we have defined it here. Like this is our error message. Fine, now we can set this value inside this, save it, seems good. Now we need to show this, first of all before we add update or add anything, we need to check if there is no error. So we can check it using calling the length, and if length is 0 that means there is no error. And okay, so if there is no error then we should allow the updation, and even for addition if there is no error, in that case only we are going to update the record. So for both case, for updation and addition, error should not be there, so that's why we are adding this condition it here. Fine, now this is about the condition. Now let us exactly show this error. Now let us do one thing here, after this header part and before the add panel starts, we need to show this error. Now we can check if error message is there, then show some span, and here we are going to actually show this error message. And okay, we need to complete the bracket. Fine, and here we can add some class as an error for this. Now what we can do, we can add some red color for this error message. Let's say here is our red color, we can add color as a red, seems good. Fine, we can save it. Now here we are showing this error message in case there is no name or manager or salary. Let us check for this one now. So let's say if we have not entered anything, and we can see it is showing all fields are required, validation as expected. Now as soon as we enter into something into this one, this error message should clear, right? We can add on change part. Inside on change, where is our on change or handle change? Yes, see, this is the handle change. Here we need to set error message as a blank. Fine, now seems good. Now we can check, like once we add now error message there, once we click enter any text, the error message is getting cleared. Fine, which is as expected. Now let us do one more thing, like this is about error message, showing error message. Now let us check for edit part as well. Now let us remove something and check whether it is going to update it. No, it is showing the error message which is as expected. Fine, seems good. Error message is working fine for add and edit purpose as well. Now let us do one thing. Now let us implement our delete functionality. Fine, so for delete functionality, in order to implement that, we need to call function on action button delete. So here is our function, we need to copy it and call it for delete, and here instead of handle update we can say it's a handle delete. And for handle delete we need to give some, write some function, like let's say handle delete, and here we are to use. Now here for handle delete we are going to actually delete some records, so we need to use a thing and await, and we are going to use this functionality which is there. Fine, now here is our functionality. For handle delete we need to call the delete method on Axios, and here we need to pass the ID first, and employee ID is not needed as an input because ID is enough for us. After this we need to set employees, because now the list has changed, we have deleted one record, we need to set list.data. Fine, seems good. Now let us do one thing. We need to add the confirmation box as well. Let's add is confirm and we can call window dot confirm on this one, and here we can add are you sure you want to delete. Fine, you want to delete, and here we complete this. If user click on OK, that means it is confirmed, then only we are going to allow to delete this record from the database. Now let us add this entry delete logic at here, and we can save it. Now we can cross check our delete functionality in the browser. Now let us do one thing. Let us open the browser right here. Fine, seems good. Now this whole part, the whole things, it is showing a bit down. So let us add some CSS so that it will show up. Now we can add some margin bottom as an 450 pixel and check, save it. Seems good. No, the table is getting down. Now the table, actually while creating the table, this is the main div, and actually we need to add this table inside this main container. Okay, so it here we need to complete this div and we can save it. Now fine. Okay, so for now we can revert it because we need to make lot many changes to do that. Fine, okay, save. We can save it, and we can remove this bottom margin bottom, and we can save it. Seems good. Now actually we are going to check our delete functionality. Fine, so we can click on delete button, and this is the confirmation box. Once we click on OK, it should remove this last record, which is Suhas and Amol, 6 records. Fine, now it is not getting deleted. Let us check what happens at here. To delete functionality, here we are calling this await execute delete. Okay, so for delete here, handle delete actually. Fine, so here we are passing this row. We need to capture this row inside this one. Here let's say it's an employee, and we need to call the ID on this employee, not on employee data ID. Fine, seems good. Now let us check on this one. Once this is the 6 records Suhas and Amol which we are want to delete. Now once we click on OK, now we can see the record is getting deleted, but only after refresh. Okay, fine. Now let us add one more thing like it here. We can add window dot location dot reload. We can call it. Fine, you can save it. We can see now record is getting deleted. Let us see, it's a Tom and Peter. Yes, it is getting deleted as expected. With this, like, we have implemented and tested all the CRUD functionalities as expected, so it is working fine. So now the thing is, we are going to implement the core functionalities like searching, sorting, pagination. So let us do that now. First of all, we will see our searching functionality. For that we can use the hook like which is available in React table. Use filter, use global filter. We can use same, we are going to use it here. In our hook, which is it here, and we can set filter. We need to set filter it here. Let's say set filter. Fine, we can save it. Now here we can define one constant for, let's say, for a global filter. We can use global filter, and here we can use state, and same state we can use it here. and we can save it. Now we need to set the global filter it somewhere. Now here where is exactly our input search filter functionality. This is the input search functionality. Now here we need to set value for it here, like value we are going to set as an it's a global filter or it's a blank, and we need to provide on change functionality, and here we can provide the function like we need to set global filter it here, and we need to pass the value it here like e dot target dot value to set as a global filter. Fine, seems good. Now let us check how it works. Like fine, we have only two records. Let us add one more record, like let's say. So let us do one thing, like before we do this, like for pagination, searching, sorting, we require more records. So let us add more rows so that we can see those functionality. Fine, we can delete the existing rows first. Now our table is empty. Now let us add some few new records. Fine, I have some new records which we can add. Here is our EMP as a schema and employee. It will insert into the employee. Fine. Now let us check into the browser part. Yes, it is showing all the records. Now let us check for the search functionality. Yes, it is showing all the it is filtering the data on basis of what text we enter it here. For Sanjay, it is showing all the Sanjay. Fine. Let us say for Sweat, it is showing all the Sweat presented here. Let's say if you want to search for 588, so it will show all the entries for 588, and it will show the respective record. So basically this filter is applicable all the table data including all the columns. Fine. Now this is about the search function filter, which is working fine. Now let us add our sorting logic. For sorting logic, again we need to add one hook, like let's say here we can use sort by, and same for this we need to add it in our use table. Let's say it here we can add, we can save it. Now one more thing we need to do, like here wherever we render our columns, let's say here we are rendering our columns, this is it. Here we need to add one more thing, like column dot get sort by toggle props. We need to add this function so that it will get sorted in ascending and descending order. Let us check it here. Now let us say if you want to sort on basis of employee, yes, it is sorting in ascending and descending order. Same for name, same for manager, same for salary. So it is applicable, this sorting is applicable for all the tables. Now it is not showing any arrow as such for ascending and descending. Let us add that arrow as well. Now here we can add that. Let's say here can say column dot is sorted if it is sorted, and let's say column dot is sorted DSC. In that case, sorry, then we need to show some span, and for this span we can add if column dot is sorted DSC, then in that case we are going to show some up arrow, and if it is not in DSC, then we are going to show the down arrow. So in order to show the up and down arrows, either we can import the icons or we can use the Windows colon option, so that it will allow us to insert the emojis. So this is for up, and for down also we can enter windows.icon, and here we can see it is a down arrow. So we can save it and let us check what happens at here. Now we can use the browser. We have 20 records. Now let us check. Now we can see it is showing the up and down arrow as expected. Same for name, for manager, and for cell, which is as expected. Seems good. So this is about our sorting functionality. Now last thing we are going to implement is the pagination part. Now let us do that part. Here we need to use pagination cook, and same we need to add it here like in our use table. Fine. Now here for pagination we need to add 4 different buttons after table. So we can create one div, like let's say here we can give class name as an page. Let's say it's a page div, pagination div, and here inside that we need to create some buttons, like it's a first, and here class name we can give as an page button. Okay, similar way we need to create 3 more buttons. This is for first, this is for previous, one for next, and this is for last. We can save it. Seems good. Now it is not showing any data. Let us check what happens it here. Okay, fine. Okay, so for pagination we need to use page, not rows. So same we need to iterate it here for while rendering the rows it here, and we can save it. Now it seems good and it is showing the buttons as well. Now we can add some CSS for this one as well. Now let's see, here we can add page div, and here we can add some margin top as an 5 pixel, and for page btn we need to give some save it. Fine. Now for this margin left we can add similar to our 75 pixel. Here we can edit it here, and we can say it seems good. Now here instead of 50 we can use 45, and the color we need to add some margin left as well, say 5 pixel. Seems good. Should be 40 pixel. Seems good. Now we can change this color. Instead of this we can use or we can use the blue color. Let's say seems good. Now it seems good. Fine. Now let us add one page count and page index span it here, which will show us like here can add it class name as an idx, and here we can use it should display page index, and here we can add page count, and we can save it. Now we need to add this page count and page variable as well at here somewhere. Now here is our hook, and here we can add this page count, and here we can use page index, and we can save it. Now it is showing fine, seems good. This is showing 0 for first page. We can change it page index +1, because we are on the first page, it should show first page. We can add idx css dot idx, and we margin left just 5 pixel. Now it seems good, fine, we can save it. So you can see we are on the first page, and we have total 2 pages now, and by default it is showing 10 records per page. Okay, now let us make this size to 5 records so that we can see multiple pages for 20 records. Now what we can do it here, after this we can add some initial state, and for initial state we can add page size, and here we can mention the count as a 5. We can save it. Now it is showing 5 records per page, seems good. Now we have 20 records, so whenever we click on next, it should show the next page, and whenever we click on previous button, it should show the previous page. So we need to implement that functionality, so we can add it here, like next button. We can say on click it should show next page, and same on click of previous it should show previous page. Fine, we need to add this into our hook, which is it here. And here one for next and one for previous page. We can save it. Now seems good. Now what we can do, whenever we can click on next button, it is showing next 10 records. Whenever we click on next button, it is showing next records, and this is the last page, 4th page, which is showing for next 5 records. Now whenever we reach on last page, the next button and last button should be disabled, because we do not have any more page to show. So we can add this functionality here, and same for previous button. Whenever we reach on first page, it should disable the first and previous page. So what we can do it here, we can say disable the when there is no next page, and same we can disable for next button and for previous button, and here for whenever we are on first page and there is no previous page, we should disable the first and previous button, and we can save. Now we need to add these entries into our hook. This is our hook, and here we need to add this, like let's say this is for previous and this is for next page, and we can save it. Now it is disabling. Now we are on the first page, first and last button, previous button is getting disabled. Likewise, whenever we click on next button, it is showing next page, and whenever we reach on last page, it is disabling next and last button, which is as expected. Now one more thing, whenever we click on first button, it is not coming to the first, and similar we need to provide functionality for last button. Now we can add it here, like go to page, and same we can copy, and we can call function to this last button on click function we need to call. So whenever we are it here, now we can call this goto, and for goto here we can say page count, it's a -1, index we should go which is the last page, and same way for first button it should show the zeroth count page. Go to zeroth count page. Let us check for this one. Fine. Whenever we click on last button, it is taking us to the last button. Whenever we click on first button, it is taking to the first button. So with this, we have completed all the functionalities like CRUD operations, showing the error messages, and front-end functionalities like searching, sorting, pagination, as we have discussed and promised before we start this video. So I will request you also, please like and subscribe the same, and I will come up with more knowledgeable videos in next. So please like and subscribe this channel and video as well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I really thank you so much once again. Thank you so much.